So Syria tonight stands accused of systematic killings and torture on a truly horrific scale. Not the best atmosphere to begin peace talks on ending the bitter conflict. And as delegates arrive in Switzerland for tomorrow's session, there are few hopes of any progress being made at all. So what's the impact on the talks? Our international editor, Lindsay Hilson, is in the Swiss town of Montreux. Lindsay.
John, here in Montreux, the delegations are arriving. The Russians, the Americans, the British expected later, and most importantly, the Syrian government and the opposition. But you know, it doesn't augur well what's going on here. The Syrian opposition is very divided. It's not clear who exactly they speak for. And the whole event is overshadowed by these shocking new revelations. These photographs that have come out in the last 24 hours showing the extraordinary extent of brutality, torture and killing in President Assad's jails.
Well, more from Lindsay Hilson shortly. And in the last few minutes, the United States has said that the evidence of the torture and killing of thousands of detainees in Syria suggests systematic and widespread violations by President Assad's regime. A warning, there are some extremely upsetting images in this report by our Foreign Affairs correspondent, Jonathan Miller.
You can only hope that the tranquility of Lac Le Mans will somehow calm things. But on the eve of the Syrian talks, the prospect of a peaceful transition of power in Damascus remains remote. Today, as sponsors of the talks touch down in Geneva, photographic evidence of torture on an industrial scale by the Syrian regime was lobbed into the arena. It exploded like a barrel bomb, reaffirming rebel demands that Bashar al-Assad be ruled out of any future equation. The report, authored by 3 senior international war crimes prosecutors and backed by forensics experts, shows highly graphic images drawn from a cache of photographs depicting as many as 11,000 dead bodies. They show signs of starvation, brutal beatings, strangulation, and other forms of torture.
It's quite clear that from the very harrowing images that we had to look at, that a very large number, a large percentage of these people who'd been killed had been starved. And the pictures were reminiscent of the worst pictures that came out of Belsen and Auschwitz after the Second World War.
His report concludes there is clear evidence capable of being believed by a tribunal of fact in a court of law of systematic torture and killing of detained persons by the agents of the Syrian government. 2 years ago, a Channel 4 documentary, Syria's Torture Machine, documented the widespread use of torture by Syria's secret police.
يعني صعب كتير. الواحد يعني بكهربوه قبل ما يموت بشوي بيشيلوا عنه الكهرباء.
Since then, there has been an exponential increase in the number of videos circulating online depicting torture committed by agents of the Syrian state. Many have been verified or corroborated by international human rights groups. The UN Human Rights Commissioner has said evidence from UN investigations indicated responsibility at the highest level of government, including the head of state. The new photographs were reportedly taken by an unnamed Syrian military police photographer and smuggled into Qatar. To protect the source, the report doesn't identify the detention centre in which the photographs were taken, but torture sites belonging to military and Air Force intelligence, the General Intelligence Directorate and the Political Security Directorate span the country. A recent Human Rights Watch report named no less than 27 different facilities allegedly used as torture and interrogation centres. The legal team, which interviewed the photographer over 3 days this month, found him to be a truthful and credible witness. He took pictures of up to 50 bodies a day. This haul of photographs lends further weight to what leading human rights groups have been saying all along, that the Assad regime is a member of a barbaric club of countries that has taken the use of mass torture to new extremes. One of these human rights organisations, the London-based Freedom from Torture, says those attending the Geneva talks must work out a way of holding the Syrian government accountable and ensure that the perpetrators are brought to justice. There is no denying that the timing of the release of this report on the eve of the talks in Switzerland is highly political. The tiny emirate of Qatar, which arms and backs the Syrian rebels, including Islamist brigades, is behind the report. It's hardly an independent broker. It paid members of the inquiry team through the London-based solicitors Carter Ruck.
We had a totally free hand, and as I was the chairman of it, I can tell you there was absolutely no, anyone who suggests that there was any form of corruption would seriously off his head.
Reports about human rights violations are always used by political powers to achieve some political gains. That does not affect the credibility and the authenticity of the report and the value of the report.
Assad insists he will not step down, but for Syria's opposition, sharing power with a man who tortures and murders his own people isn't going to happen. Peace talks? Not really.